Omo relationship na scam o. I don't understand why girls need men to be happy. It's okay if you don't want to be in a relationship. You don't have to be bitter about it. It can never be me, Sha!
In the
This
busy
is so
heart of
cozy,
Lagos,
isn't it?
two
It really
young
is.
women
Here,
once
have some
lived
more.
like sisters.
Thanks.
They shared
Delicious.
everything.
I'm
Food,
glad. Your turn now.
clothes, dreams, even their deepest secrets. But there was one thing they could not share: a man. And when jealousy quietly entered their friendship, it did not knock. It destroyed everything. This is the story of Grace and Glory, two best friends whose bond was stronger than blood, until love turned one of them into an enemy. And by the time the truth came out, one of them had already lost everything. The streets of Lagos never sleep. Downfall buses honk endlessly. Market women shout over each other, and survival is a daily battle. Grace and Glory knew this battle very well. They were not related by blood, but they were closer than sisters. Both had left their small village in Osun State years earlier, chasing a better life in Lagos. When they first arrived, life was cruel. They shared a tiny one-room apartment in Surulere, where the roof leaked whenever it rained. Sometimes they had only one plate of rice to share, but they never complained. Grace was the older one. She was bold, outspoken, and quick-thinking. Glory was softer, gentle, kind, the kind of girl people trusted instantly. Despite their struggles, they always laughed together. When Grace sold one blouse, she would say, "Tonight, we eat like queens." And Glory would laugh. "If selling one blouse makes us queens, imagine what will happen when we sell 10. Eventually, luck smiled on them. They both got jobs as salesgirls in a popular clothing boutique on Lagos Island. The shop was owned by a strict woman called Madame Bose. Madame Bose had one rule: if you are lazy, Lagos will swallow you. Grace and Glory worked harder than anyone. From morning until night, they arranged clothes, attended to customers, and tried to convince people to buy expensive outfits. Slowly, life improved. They could now afford better food. They bought small things they once only admired in shop windows. But they still shared everything, even their dreams. Grace dreamed of owning her own boutique one day. Glory dreamed of a peaceful home with a loving husband. Neither of them knew that one day, that dream would destroy their friendship. One hot afternoon, something happened that neither of them would ever forget. A young man walked into the boutique. Tall, handsome, confident. The kind of man that made heads turn. His name was Peter. He wore a simple white shirt and dark sunglasses, but there was something about him that screamed wealth. Grace noticed him first. Her heart skipped. She quickly walked up to him. "Good afternoon, sir," she said sweetly. "Welcome to our store." Peter smiled politely. "I'm looking for a suit." Grace immediately began showing him different options. She laughed at his jokes, complimented his style. She was sure he liked her. But then, something unexpected happened. Peter's eyes moved past Grace. They landed on Glory, and he did not look away. Glory was standing quietly by the shelves, arranging clothes. She had not even noticed him staring. Peter suddenly asked Grace a strange question. "Who is that girl?" Grace's smile froze. "Which one?" "The one arranging the blue dresses." Grace's heart tightened. "That's my friend Glory." Peter nodded slowly. "She seems different." From that moment, Grace knew something was wrong, but she ignored the feeling. Until Peter returned the next day, and the next, and the next. Not to see Grace, but to see Glory. At first, Glory didn't even realize Peter liked her. She thought he was simply a friendly customer. But Peter was persistent. He began coming to the boutique almost every day. Sometimes he bought clothes. Sometimes he bought nothing. But he always talked to Glory. Grace watched everything. At first, she tried to laugh about it. But inside, something dark was growing. One evening, after closing the shop, Glory told Grace something that shattered her heart. "Grace," she said shyly, "Peter asked me out today." Grace forced a smile. "That's good news." Glory looked nervous. "I don't know what to do." Grace felt anger rising in her chest, but she hid it. "Why not try?" she said. "He seems like a good man." And just like that, Grace unknowingly pushed the man she liked into her friend's arms.
Peter was not just handsome, he was rich, very rich. He owned businesses across Lagos. Within months, Glory's life completely changed. No more cramped apartment, no more struggling. Peter rented her a beautiful apartment in Lekki. Grace visited often, and every visit made her heart heavier. The house was beautiful, expensive furniture, shiny floors, everything Glory once dreamed of. And sometimes, Glory would talk about Peter in ways that made Grace uncomfortable. One night, while they were eating dinner together, Glory said with a dreamy smile, "Grace, I didn't know a man could love someone this much." Grace looked up. "What do you mean?" Glory laughed shyly. "Peter spoils me. He buys me anything I want. And when we are together—" She paused. Her cheeks turned red. Grace felt a sharp pain in her chest. "Together, what?" she asked. Glory giggled. "Let's just say, I married the right man." Grace forced herself to laugh, but jealousy had already entered her heart. A year later, Peter proposed. The wedding was extravagant. Guests from across Lagos attended. Luxury cars filled the street. Grace stood beside Glory as her chief bridesmaid, smiling, clapping, celebrating, but deep inside, she felt like something precious had been stolen from her. While Glory walked down the aisle, Grace whispered to herself, "That life should have been mine." After the wedding, Grace's life remained the same. She still worked long hours at the boutique, still struggled. Meanwhile, Glory's life became even better. Expensive vacations, designer bags, jewelry, and every time Glory visited Grace, she talked about her perfect marriage. "Peter surprised me with a new car yesterday." Or, "We are traveling to Dubai next week." Sometimes she would even tease Grace playfully. "You need to find a man like Peter." Grace smiled. But every word cut deeper. Slowly, jealousy turned into something dangerous. A plan began forming in her mind. If she could not have Peter first, maybe she could still take him. Grace began visiting Glory's house more often, but this time, her intentions were different. She dressed differently, more attractive, more seductive. She laughed louder when Peter was around, and Peter began to notice. At first, he ignored it, but Grace was patient. One evening, Glory traveled to Abuja for a family matter. Grace came to visit. Peter was alone. They sat together in the living room. The atmosphere felt strange. Grace leaned closer. "You work too hard," she said softly. Peter looked uncomfortable. "Grace," but Grace didn't stop. "You deserve someone who understands you." Peter stood up quickly. "You should leave." Grace smiled and whispered something that shocked him. "Do you really think Glory is the only woman who can make you happy?" Peter stared at her, confused, tempted, and suddenly everything changed. At first, Peter resisted, but temptation is powerful. Grace knew exactly how to manipulate the situation. She understood Peter's weaknesses. Soon, secret meetings began, quiet phone calls, hidden messages. A dangerous affair started growing behind Glory's back, and the worst part, Glory still trusted Grace completely. She continued sharing her secrets, confiding in the very person betraying her. Grace smiled at her face, while slowly destroying her life. But secrets never stay hidden forever, and one day, Glory would discover the truth. One night, Glory returned home earlier than expected. She walked quietly into the house, but something felt strange. Voices in the bedroom. She pushed the door open, and what she saw destroyed her world. Her husband and her best friend together. In that moment, Glory did not scream. She did not cry. She simply whispered one sentence. "Grace, why?" Grace had no answer. The betrayal shattered everything. Peter begged for forgiveness. Grace tried to explain, But Glory's heart had already broken. She threw them both out of her life. Peter lost his marriage. Grace lost the only true friend she ever had. And Glory learned a painful lesson. Sometimes, the people closest to you are the ones capable of hurting you the most. A snake does not enter a house unless someone inside opens the door. Grace allowed jealousy to poison her heart. Peter allowed temptation to destroy his marriage. And Glory learned that trust must be given wisely. Because sometimes, the enemy is not far away. Sometimes, the enemy is the friend sitting right beside you.